Buying this is easy, but can you actually sell it later? In my last video, I broke down why Tengah Garden Residences has strong potential, looking at the supply and demand in the area, and more importantly, whether buyers can actually afford your future selling price. So if you haven't watched that yet, I would recommend starting there first, because that's really the foundation before we go into this. Hi guys, this is Yvette. Welcome back. In this video, I'll walk you through how to choose the right unit and more importantly, how to plan your exit. If you find this helpful, feel free to like, share and subscribe, or reach out to me if you want a more detailed breakdown for your own situation. Now, knowing that a project is good is only half the story. The real question is, how do you actually choose the right unit? And more importantly, when and how do you exit? Because one thing many buyers overlook is this: the incoming private supply, especially from the ECs reaching MOP in the coming years. And I'll cover that later in this video. In today's market, especially for new launches, I see a lot of buyers rushing in due to hype and FOMO, and end up overpaying without fully understanding what they are buying into. Not every stack, not every layout will perform the same. And when you understand your pricing and exit strategy, it helps you make better decisions, even if it means walking away when the price is no longer right. So in this video, I'm going to break down step by step the development, the site plan, the unit mix, and more importantly, the floor plans. So by the end of this, you'll have a much clearer idea of what to buy and what to avoid. So a quick overview first. Tengah Garden Residences is a mixed development with about 863 residential units alongside its commercial components. On paper, to be completed in 2030, though on non-committal basis in 2029. I won't spend too much time here, just to show you some of the artist's impression, and this is where the project is. Let's move on to something more important, the site plan. Over here on the left, this is the actual site plan. You'll notice that majority of the stacks are north-south facing, though slightly slanted, which I think it is quite a smart move by the developers. If you look at the URA master plan on the right, the above plot over here is zoned for healthcare, the future Tengah Hospital. Because of this slight slant in orientation, the stacks are not directly facing the hospital and at the same time, not directly facing the MRT tracks too. So it helps to balance out both sides. So at the bottom over here, I've included the street directory, so you can clearly see where everything is positioned, including the surrounding BTO developments. So the highlight of this project is definitely the waterfront living. But even for stacks facing the hospital or nearer to the MRT, if you enter at the right price, there can still be upside, because buyers don't just look at facing, they look at overall value, price, layout, and livability. We have seen this happen before in projects like the Vales. Despite similar facings, for example, this one specifically facing Sengkang Hospital, there are still buyers in the resale market, because when the demand is there, buyers prioritize affordability and practicality. Now, looking at the elevation chart, just a very quick one, and then we move on to the unit mix. It is quite well distributed between 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms, but the bulk of the supply is really in the 2 and the 3 bedroom range. Personally, I think this is a good balance because you still have a decent proportion of larger units which support owning families and overall livability. And ultimately, that's the buyer profile we are targeting in the future resale market. If you ask me, ideally I would have liked to see some 5-bedroom units, but realistically that could push the quantum up quite a bit and may be harder for buyers here to afford. So I can understand why developers focus more on the 3 and the 4-bedroom segments instead. One important thing to take note, within the same unit type, right, you'll notice that the size range is actually quite wide. For example, for the 3-bedders, the starting price around 1.588 million is usually tied to the smallest units. As you move up to the larger sizes, right, the price jump can be quite significant. And it is the same situation for the 4-bedders as well. On top of that, the more compact sizes, which come with a more palatable price quantum, are actually quite limited in supply. So if you are coming with a specific budget, your queue number will matter a lot because not everyone will be able to secure a unit here. Now, moving on to the floor plans. So let's start with the 1-bedders. For this project, there are only 6 units in total, across 484 square feet and 517 square feet. These are extremely limited in supply. Based on the past launches, units like this, smaller quantum, sub 1 million range, are usually stepped up really quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if this gets taken up on day 1. So the starting price for this is around $980,000. But that being said, this is not really the main focus for most buyers here because demand in Tengah is still driven by HDB upgraders who typically look at larger unit types. So moving on to the 2-bedders, first we have the 2-bed 1-bath at 624 square feet, about 120 units here, starting from around $1.11 million. This is quite a palatable entry point. Even if prices move upwards such as different facing, higher floor level, the overall quantum still remains manageable. Next, we have the 2-bed 2-bath ranging from around 657 to 687 square feet. If we estimate pricing around 2001 to 2150 per square foot, that could reach around 1.4 to 1.5 million. So this is where strategy becomes important. During balloting, you might face a situation whereby a higher floor 2-bed 1-bath unit at higher per square foot is priced very similarly to a lower floor 2-bed 2-bath unit and a lower per square foot. In this case, I would choose the 2-bed 2-bath because the additional bathroom improves own stay comfort, future buyer appeal, and overall resale demand. Next, we have the 2-bedroom with study at 753 square feet. Layout-wise, it is very similar to the 2-bed 2-bath, just with a slightly bigger living area and additional study. So essentially, you are paying for about 90 square feet in terms of more space, and that could translate to around 100,000 more potentially. But at this price point, you are already very close to a small 3-bedroom that is starting at 1.588 million. So personally, if the price gap is small, I would lean more towards the 3-bedder instead because it is more practical for own stay and easier to exit in the future. Now moving on to the 3-bedroom layouts. This is actually the segment that I feel is the most important for this project because this is where most of your future demand will come from, which I call the sweet spot. So let's start with the 3-bedroom compact. This range from 797 all the way to 829 square feet. Sizes are compact, but supply is not a lot. You have 15 units, 13 a bit more, at the 829 square feet at 68 units. So again, it depends on your queue. The smallest unit at 797 square feet is a dumbbell layout, meaning if you cover one side, essentially it becomes like a 2-bed 1-bath. Just that now you are getting extra bedroom. Prices are starting from around 1.588 million, close to 2,000 per square foot. Do note that for the 797 square feet, kitchen is not enclosable, but however, you do get windows in both of your bathrooms, which is actually a plus. For most HDB upgraders, these sizes are quite manageable. As you move up to the 818 and 829 square feet layouts, you get more traditional layouts whereby you have all 3 bedrooms on one side. The differences are small, mainly in the foyer area, which gives you more privacy in the bigger layout. Next, we have the 904 square feet with a store. Personally, this is one of the layouts that I really like because you get a bigger living area, bigger kitchen, and most importantly, an additional store. It's actually quite comparable to a 4-room HDB in terms of size, just that you are getting a condo product with balcony. So in terms of practicality and livability, this one is quite strong. Now, moving on to the 3-bedroom premium with yard. These range from 969 square feet all the way to 1033 square feet. This is when you need to be very careful because the price jump can be quite big. From the smallest 3-bedroom compact of 797 square feet to now being over 1000 square feet, that is more than 200 square feet of difference, which can translate to a very significant increase in price. So over here, the layout differences are not huge, mainly in the kitchen, foyer, and overall space. So for this one, you can see that the moment you enter over here, it's straight to the living and dining area, whereas for the other layouts, you do have a longer corridor/foyer area. And for some of the layouts, the bomb shelter is in the kitchen. Some of them is nearer to your entrance over here. Then also, your kitchen orientation is also a little bit different. Then I move you to the bigger layout types, same as before. However, this one, no corridor area. This one has a slight corridor area, but the bulk of the difference is really a slightly bigger kitchen and also the walk-in wardrobe that you have in the master bedroom. So at the end of the day, what you choose really depends on your queue number, what's available, and how the developer priced each of the unit because of the different sizes. But overall, this entire 3-bedroom segment is actually the sweet spot of the project, because it fits upgraded budgets. It is practical for own stay and aligns with future demand. Now, moving on to the 4-bedroom units. These range from about 1130 square feet to 1259 square feet. This segment is mainly for own stay buyers as the quantum is higher. Layout is also quite similar across the board. The main difference is really in the kitchen, foyer, and also master bedroom. So over here, you can see that in the smaller 4 bedrooms, right, you do have a separate L-shaped wardrobe in your master bedroom. There is a bit of a difference in terms of the kitchen orientation, the kitchen sizes as well if you look across the board. But however, if you move to the bigger 4-bedroom unit types, you get an even bigger master bedroom at 18 square meters. That is quite luxurious in today's market. And also, your living and dining area is bigger. Your kitchen is slightly bigger as well. And also, you get an additional Jack and Jill bathroom over here between your 2 common bedrooms. One key factor here for the 4-bedroom unit types is the facing, especially the waterfront facing stacks, which likely will command a premium. So if you're buying for own stay, that lifestyle may justify the higher price point. But from an investment perspective, entry price matters more, because the higher you enter, the harder your exit may become. Now, this is the most important part, your exit strategy. We're looking at close to 21,000 HDB units reaching MOP in Tengah area alone. We haven't included other areas such as Bukit Batok, Jurong East, Jurong West yet. But however, just among this 21,000 HDB, even if just a 5 to 10% upgrade, that's already strong demand. But however, your competition comes from the ECs reaching MOP. If you buy in 2026 today, your earliest exit is around 2030, which is when your 4 years SSD is up. At that point of time, your main competition is still manageable. Why? Because at that point of time, perhaps likely only Koppen Grand EC has reached its MOP. But however, if you hold longer, more ECs enter to the market and competition increase, especially more towards 2031, 2032, that range. Yes, condos typically maintain a price premium. But the question is, how much room do you have to push your price up? So strategically, the best exit window is around 2030 to 2031 range. At the end of the day, it's not just about buying. It's about what you buy, how you buy, and most importantly, how you exit. Because a good investment property is not just can buy or not. It's actually can sell or not. If you found this helpful, feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.